Hi.
Alright, hello guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're brand new here, my name is Nikki and this is my book nook. Guys, we are doing my March reading wrap up today, which kind of makes me sick to my stomach. I cannot believe that it is already April. I feel like the beginning of this year has just flown by. This month, I'm not gonna lie, it was a little bit of a weird reading month for me. It was a major roller coaster, and you're gonna see that as we talk through these books. I read some fantastic books. I read some books that I really didn't like. I read a few books that I had been so excited to read for a very long time that just really disappointed me. And then I read some that were kind of just like in the middle of the pack. So we've got a whole lot to talk about. Let's just get into it. So first up, in the month of March, I read The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. This book has been sitting on my shelf for far too long, years at this point. I don't know why it took me so long to pick it up, but I'm so happy that I finally did. This book was so good, so different. The concept still just like blows my mind, but it follows this girl named Addie LaRue, as you might be able to tell. Basically, she was born in this very small town in France in the late 1600s, and she has just always wanted more for herself. She always wanted to live life to the fullest. She wanted to see the world, travel, leave her mark on the world, which was not really something that women did at this time. It was very common at this time to just kind of stay in your small town, get arranged to marry whoever benefited your family the most, and then pop out their children, and that was kind of it. And Addie always wanted more for herself than that, and so when the day finally comes where inevitably she is being expected to marry this man, in desperation she calls out to the gods to help her. But she broke the one rule that she has always grown up learning, which is to never pray to the gods that answer in the night, something along those lines. But basically, this god appears before her, and he is not the god she was looking for, but he offers to help her. He asks her what she wants, what she, craves the most in the world, what he can do to help her, and her answer is just time. She wants more time. So this god agrees to give her more time and, basically grant her immortality. She can live as long as she wants, but the only caveat is that once she's done living, once she's ready to pass on, he gets her soul. So like I said, Addie's desperate. This sounds good to her. She's like, why would I not just live forever? Sure, take it. Like, I don't want to marry this man. Let me live forever. Help me out. So she takes the deal, but this god does not really give her the fine print of the deal. So Addie learns very quickly she is blessed with immortality, but she is cursed with never being remembered. So essentially, she gets to live forever. She does not age. She cannot be harmed. There's really no way for her to die. But every single person that meets her will forget her the next time they see her again. Anytime she leaves a room, if they fall asleep, once they see her face again, they will have no memory of her. She has no ability to say her name to anybody. She's not able to write anything down, create anything, leave anything behind. So she is able to live forever, but she's kind of living this very empty, alone existence where she has to start over each and every day all over again. And that obviously makes life very hard. It's a little hard to hold down a job when your employer doesn't remember your name. It's hard to rent property when someone doesn't remember renting it to you. Like, there's so much to it. But Addie lives this life for 300 years, basically every single year, this god coming back to kind of taunt her, to ask if she's ready to give up, if she's ready to, give him her soul. But Addie is stubborn and she's determined. Even though this is not what she wanted, she's still going to make the best out of it. She wants to see every single thing she could possibly see, travel the world, whatnot. But obviously it is a very lonely life, and she does this for 300 years until one day she's in New York City. She goes into a bookstore, and when she returns the next day, the boy in the bookstore remembers her. So that is the very basic synopsis on this book, pretty much verbatim what is said on the book. So I'm not spoiling anything by telling you this boy remembers her, but so good. The villain in this story was one of my favorite villains of all time, like maybe my favorite. He very much gives like Klaus Michelson vibes, if you're a Vampire Diaries fan, like that kind of villain that is really ruthless, and like that you should hate him with everything in you, but like you can't help but love him. You can't help but feel like attracted to him. Like, he has this like magnetic energy. I was just so obsessed with him. I was obsessed with Addie. I just really felt like I related to her and understood her. I just thought the concept was so cool. Seriously, if you haven't checked this book out yet, highly recommend it. So next, because I loved The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue so much, and because that was a book that had just been sitting on my shelf for years, collecting dust that I was putting off for no reason, I decided to follow that same theme and pick up another book that I had been putting off for so long, that I had been wanting to read so badly. And I read The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. This book, honestly, I feel like anybody that is around my age, I'm 25, the movie that was adapted from this book was iconic. I would say honestly at this point it is at the level of like a cult classic. It stars Logan Lerman, Emma Watson. So many people when I was growing up adored this movie so much, and me being the nerdy little bookworm that I am, I was like, you know what, I'm not gonna watch that movie until I read the book. Like, I'm just gonna read the book first. But then I never read the book, and so I never really saw the movie. And then over time, because it's been many, many years, I've seen bits and pieces of that movie, but still, I always wanted to read the book. So I finally picked it up, and I cannot believe I waited this long because I loved it so much. I just love stories like this, these short little books that just are coming of age stories that just make you nostalgic and feel like it just reminds you of growing up, of those formative years, of figuring out who you are and just being so confused and exploring life and friendships and relationships. I just love these stories where it feels like the narrator is speaking to you, like they are your friend and that you are growing up with them and going through all these things, and it just leaves you feeling like so full of life and infinite. And I don't know, I really, really liked it. The story very basically follows this boy named Charlie that is going into high school for the first time. He's starting his freshman year, and this story is really written in kind of like a diary format. It's like he's writing letters and you're reading them, and he's just kind of telling you about his life and what he's gone through and his family dynamics and issues and, you know, his nerves with starting high school. And then as he starts high school, you see him, you know, meeting new friends, exploring life and love and, you know, what he wants to do when he grows up. And there's just such a comfy feeling associated with this book. I feel like it had such good representation. It just touched on like every single trial and tribulation of becoming a teenager, of becoming an adult, of being in high school, and just things being so weird and not knowing what's going on or who you are. Like, it talks about all of those things, and you see so many different types of people in this story, so many different types of relationship dynamics, family problems. I really, really liked it. It just gave me the warm and fuzzies, and that's kind of all there was to it. I definitely recommend it if you haven't read it yet. This is just my type of book. It just, I don't know, just makes me happy. Okay, so the next two books I'm gonna talk about, I'm like a little bit anxious to talk about and a little bit sad to talk about, because these two books were ones that I have been so excited to read, that have been so highly recommended to me and have been on my list for so long. And I was like, you know what? This is the month. I'm gonna read them. And they both really disappointed me. And I am just feeling like I am in the minority here and that nobody's gonna agree with me. But you know, I'm here to be honest. That is what we do on this channel. So first up, I read Marriage for One by Ella Mays, and I'm waiting for the gasps coming from the audience because I have had so many people recommend this book to me, and I feel like last year or the year before, this was so many people's favorite book. I remember seeing it in so many like yearly wrap-ups of people talking about their favorite books, and just like people were raving about it. It was all over Instagram, and I have been so excited to read it because I'm actually a fan of Ella Mays. I read one of her other books called To Love Jason Thorne last year, and I really, really liked it. That book as well was a Marriage of Convenience book, so I figured, okay, this is another one of those. It's also by Ella Mays. Surely I'm gonna love it. And I don't know why it just didn't hit for me. The basic sort of synopsis of the story is that it follows this woman named Rose and this man named Jack. Rose has just lost her uncle, who basically has been her guardian, for lack of a better term, for most of her life. And Rose always knew that her uncle was going to leave behind this property for her. It has always been a dream of hers to open a coffee shop, and her uncle had this property on this very busy street in New York City where they live, and he was gonna leave this to Rose so that she could open her coffee shop. But there is one little caveat. Before he passed away, Rose was engaged to be married to this man, and because her uncle is weird and old-fashioned, he wouldn't leave the property in Rose's name. He wanted to leave it in her husband's name. So he left in his will, this property is to be left to my niece Rose's husband, blah, blah, blah. Well, long story short, shortly before the uncle passed away, Rose and this fiance actually broke up. So Rose does not have a husband, therefore she is not able to get this property. And that is where Jack comes in. Jack is her uncle's lawyer. He's handling the estate. And when Jack is looking through this will and he sees this sort of caveat, it kind of clicks in his head and he's like, okay, Rose, you just need a husband. He didn't put your husband's name. He just said it's going to Rose's husband. So if you're married, you can get this property. And Rose is like, that's great, but I'm not married. And Jack is like, well, you could be married to me. So Jack, because he is kind of like a lawyer and he's very like in the rich crowd and going to a lot of social events, it would benefit him to have somebody to go to these events with him. And also this property is a very valuable property. It would do him some good to have it in his name. So he basically offers to marry Rose and, you know, just be married to her for the couple of years that it's necessary for all the paperwork to go through, for the coffee shop to officially be hers, and then they can get divorced essentially. So it is very much a marriage of convenience book, and that's just like kind of what the story is about. These two are essentially strangers when they meet and when they decide to get married. So we just see them sort of navigating that. Rose opening her coffee shop, her attending, you know, events with him. And I just don't know why it didn't do it for me. I feel like something that I love so much about marriage of convenience books is that typically the people getting married in those stories are people that have a lot of history and know each other and typically dislike each other. So it's really, really fun to kind of watch them get married and be forced to live together and spend all this time together and then slowly watch feelings develop. But this story was just such a different vibe because they were basically strangers. So you were kind of just like watching them become friends and then slowly kind of become more. Like, there was a lot to it. I made an entire video on this book if you want to go and watch it, but at the end of the day, I just thought it was really slow and really boring. It really didn't capture my attention. It was a major slow burn, which I don't have a problem with. I love slow burn. I will say once it got to the spice, mind-blowing, like so good. The spice frankly knocked my socks off. Was very impressed with that, but everything else, I don't know. I didn't feel super attached to the characters. The story to me, I just felt like it was like, I don't know. I just felt like I was kind of forcing myself to get through it because so many people love it. And I was like, surely it's gonna get better. And I never was that excited about it. So I don't know. Not like the worst book in the world, but just didn't do anything for me. The next book, I don't even want to hold up because I'm sad about it and I don't want to talk about it. And I feel like so many of you guys have been waiting for me to talk about it, but just hear me out, okay? I read Consider Me by Becca Mack, which has been a book that has been on my TBR for months now. It's been on my high priority TBR because everybody is talking about it. This is a hockey romance book, which right away, if you know me at all, I'm like, okay, I'm in. Also, the cover is stunning. There's trees on the cover. If you put a tree on a book cover, I'm gonna buy it. Like, it's simply a thing about me. But okay, let me just explain. This story basically follows this man named Carter Beckett. He is an NHL player. He's the captain of the Vancouver hockey team. And it also follows this girl named Olivia. Basically how the two get connected is Carter's teammate's girlfriend is Olivia's best friend. So Carter and Olivia kind of end up at a party together one night, and that is where the two of them cross paths. Carter is total playboy, like hooks up with a different girl every night, no interest in commitment, no interest in settling down. And Olivia is a high school PE teacher. She's very much like a normal girl, very much about commitment, hasn't dated anyone in a very long time because when she's in, she's all in. She's not about the one night stands, whatever. The two are just very kind of polar opposite. But Olivia catches Carter's eye. He sets his sights on her and he is determined to get her. And I will say, when this book started out, I was gripped. Like the first 100 pages or so, I was obsessed. I started it and I was like, oh my God, this is gonna be my new favorite hockey romance book. Like, I am so sucked in. Carter is totally a playboy, but I can just tell I'm gonna be obsessed with him. And then especially when him and Olivia met each other, the banter, the tension between the two of them, Olivia was like playing so hard to get and I was so obsessed with her. Like, I was just eating it up. Like, this man was like on his knees for this girl. She was not having it. There was a lot of like chasing her and I just loved it. But I just am so picky about my romance books, especially my sort of like enemies to lovers books, because the pacing to me just like is so important and has to be done right. And literally, like I said, the first 100 pages were great, but then kind of all at once, it was like the tension was broken we've kind of given into our feelings, and like now the rest of the book, we're just gonna date. Like nothing happened in this book, and I just don't understand, because people are raving about it, and if you loved it, I'm so happy for you. Look, I do want to say this. I do want to say this book is my ultimate fantasy. Like if I could write my life and it could become real of what I would want, it would be this book. Like it's fantastic. The meeting the NHL player, the things that he does to get her, all of it is great. And then their relationship, Carter, the character development, like I loved Carter Beckett so much. The man in the story, like I was obsessed with him. Like please let me have him in real life. But when it comes to like a book, when it comes to entertainment purposes, I just felt like there was literally no plot to this story whatsoever. Like it was just about the meeting and kind of getting together, and then there was really no conflict throughout it other than just the girl being really insecure. And that is something that just kind of like, I don't know, I don't love that. It kind of irritates me, and I just felt like it was just so long. I mean, it doesn't look that long, but the font is really small, and I just feel like it could have been easily 100 pages less, if not 150. I just didn't feel like anything happened in it. And like I said, the first 100 pages, I was on the edge of my seat, but I just wish there was more to the story, and that's all I have to say. I'm definitely gonna read the next book in this series though. I'm gonna give it a try because I loved the writing. I loved, again, the man. The spice was great. I just prefer a little bit more to my story. I prefer a little bit more of like a back and forth. I want slower of a burn. I like there to be pacing with the physical things that happen, not just like nothing to everything all at once and then everything for the rest of the book. I just feel like it all starts to like run together at that point. I don't know. I might make a whole video talking a little bit more in depth about this one, but I wanted to love it. I wanted to love it so much, and I just kept trying to like convince myself that I did, but I just had to finally admit it that I just didn't really like it that much. So very sad, very disappointed. It's still a beautiful book, and again, I'm gonna try the next one, but yeah, I don't know, guys. Nikki from the future here. I am literally sitting here editing this video right now, and I have no idea what happened, but I lost an entire clip. It is poof, gone into oblivion. The clip specifically where I was talking about basically I think my favorite book I read this last month, one of my favorite books I've read in a very long time, and so there is not a chance that I'm not going to include it in my monthly wrap up, but it's gone. And I said such good things about it. I was on such a roll. I was like, I was just feeling it, but it's gone. So I'm going to talk to you guys about it really quickly again. The next book that I read in the month of March was Does It Hurt by H.D. Carlton. I cannot even explain to you how much I love this book. I read Haunting Adeline last year, and look, there were scenes in that book that altered my brain chemistry straight up. I know we love to say that term, like throw it around, but no, truly Haunting Adeline was an experience. But this book, no different. There was a scene specifically in it that I have not stopped thinking about, but basic sort of synopsis, it follows this girl named Sawyer. And we know very vaguely in the beginning, you don't really know what happens at first. You kind of have to figure it out throughout the story, but we just know that Sawyer has found herself in some trouble. And because of this, she's been forced to live this lifestyle where she moves around a lot. She has to constantly hide herself, hide her identity. So at the start of the story, she is basically going to her newest destination to kind of hide out, and she's going to Australia. She's staying in this really small town to, kind of hide out there. And because of this lifestyle she has to live, she has to do some kind of like not very legal things to get by, a lot of which includes kind of like stealing from people, stealing identities, manipulating people, and often her target for that is men because it's fairly easy because she's a girl and she can kind of trick them, whatever. So now that she is in Australia in this town, she basically ends up meeting this man named Enzo at this bar, and she kind of uses him as a target. She spots him out, and he's very attractive, very handsome. Doesn't like how attracted she is to him because that just like makes it harder, but whatever. They have their little fling, and she does what she normally does. But Enzo was not the right guy to mess with. Enzo actually is kind of like a scientist or a researcher. He works with sharks. And like I said, she picked the wrong man. So long story short, they end up kind of crossing paths again. They end up on a boat together because he does work on a boat and has boats, whatever, because of the shark situation. And they get caught out at sea in a storm and they end up wrecking their boat. They end up wrecking right near this sort of island that's out off the coast. And the only thing on the island is this lighthouse. And, you know, when they get there, they knock on the lighthouse door and there's this old man that lives there. He informs them that he lives there by himself. He's lived here most of his life. He mans the lighthouse, and that there's really no way off this island. There's a boat that comes once a month to bring him supplies. But other than that, they got to swim, basically. They either got to wait for this boat to come or they got to swim. And the boat just came a few days ago. So now you have Sawyer and Enzo stuck on this island together. The two, in the short time they've known each other, have had a very tumultuous relationship. They're now at a point where they are straight up enemies, like hate each other's guts. Enzo is like intent on seeking his revenge on Sawyer, and Sawyer is like losing her mind over this, has a lot of secrets. So now they're forced to stay together in this lighthouse in the one singular spare bedroom to, you know, kind of wait it out. And a whole lot happens in this. This is a whole roller coaster. It gets to be even kind of like a thriller. It has some sort of like paranormal-y mystery elements to it as well. It was just so good. I don't know the last time I was this gripped by a story where I just like could not put it down. I read it in like a day and a half, and it's like a pretty thick book, but I was so sucked in. Literally from the first page, you're just like, what is going on? Like, you want to know. It was amazing, and I'm just like so obsessed with H.D. Carlton. I need to read Hunting Adeline because that's the second book in the cat and mouse duet, but I've been like saving it because I just love her stuff so much. But yeah, full-blown 5 stars, obsessed with this book, and I just want to prepare you guys because I feel like I'm going to be talking about it an obnoxious amount for the rest of the year. But yeah, back to our regularly scheduled programming. Still mad my clip got deleted, but whatever, we'll survive. So next, I decided to totally switch gears from Does It Hurt? Because I loved Perks of Being a Wallflower so much. I decided I wanted to do another sort of like feel-good, coming-of-age type of story. And if y'all don't know, John Green is basically my favorite human of all time. He wrote The Fault in Our Stars, which is my favorite book of all time. And I have been reading his books and exploring his work for, I mean, over a decade at this point. I read The Fault in Our Stars for the first time in like 2012, but I have made it a point to like take my time to read his books because I don't want to be out of them. He doesn't put out that many. He hasn't put out many in a long time, so I kind of save them for a rainy day, but I figured it was time to pick up a new one, and so I read An Abundance of Katherines. And this story basically follows this boy named Colin, and Colin is a genius. He's really a child prodigy. He was on this game show growing up about being a kid genius. He has a photographic memory. He's just super smart. He knows all these languages. Like every single thing that he studies super hard, makes sure he knows everything about. Like he's really just an inspiration. But at this point, Colin has graduated from high school and he just feels washed up. He feels like he peaked as a child, that he was a child genius, but that he's kind of gone downhill. He hasn't cured cancer or like participated in rocket science yet. Therefore, he feels like he's kind of a failure. But another interesting thing about Colin is that throughout his life, every single romantic encounter that he has been with a girl named Catherine. And this is not one singular Catherine. It is actually 19 different Catherines. Every girl he has ever had any sort of romantic involvement with has been named Catherine, spelled the exact same way with a K. So now, obviously, all of these relationships have ended. And now the 19th relationship with the 19th Catherine has ended. She has broken up with him, just like 18 other Catherines before her. And so Colin is very down in the dumps, very upset. He really thought this Catherine was going to be the Catherine to stick. And so he is determined to figure out what this is. There has to be a scientific explanation, a mathematical equation, something that can explain the probability and the statistics behind these Catherines all being girls that he like loves or feels something for, and them breaking up with him. And I do just want to say the Catherines literally go from age like 5 to present day. Any type of romantic involvement, meaning just like in kindergarten dating for 5 seconds or like a kiss on the cheek, whatever, in 3rd grade, like it's not literally 19 relationships he had in high school. But anyways, he's determined to figure out what the deal is with this, and his best friend is not having it because he's just super depressed. He's like, dude, we just graduated from high school. Like, you are so down in the dumps. Like, you are in a rut. Like, you need to get out of the house. Let's go. We're going on a road trip. So they end up going on this road trip together, and they are planning to just spend the summer sort of on this road trip. They don't have any plan or rhyme or reason to it, but they're just gonna figure it out. And their parents are like, okay, have fun, but you know, find jobs while you're gone, make some money, do something productive, but have a good time, be safe, peace out. So the two end up driving for quite a while until they come across this sort of roadside attraction in this small town, and they pull over and they end up meeting this girl that sort of like runs this attraction named Lindsay. Like her family owns it. And long story short, they end up staying in this town. They end up working at this attraction with Lindsay, staying with her family. Lindsay very much catches Colin's eye, is very different, very interesting, but he's not interested because she's not named Catherine. This is honestly just kind of like a very quirky and weird story. It was very kind of just like, I don't know, it reminded me of John Green's other books. It did remind me of sort of like a coming of age story again, but I think my thing is that every other John Green book that I've read, I've been able to really deeply connect to. Like every single character, I have felt like John went inside my head and pulled out my deepest, darkest insecurities or fears about life and like put them into that character for me specifically to read. Like every one of his books so far, I have been so connected to and related to. And this was the first book that I really kind of I didn't really feel like I understood Colin or that he was someone that, you know, I related to. And it was very like mathematics and, you know, stats and science, and that's like not really my thing as much. So I don't know. This book was a super easy read. I read it in basically a day. But there just wasn't much to it. It was kind of just like a silly little story. And then when it ended, I was like, okay, like, I don't know. So I didn't really love it. Kind of disappointed, honestly. This is the first John Green book that I read that I didn't absolutely adore, but you know, I don't regret reading it. It was easy. It was something different. So yeah. So next, once again, I said this was going to be a roller coaster. I was pretty disappointed by An Abundance of Katherines, but I absolutely adored the next book that I read, and I need more people to be talking about it. I feel like recently in the last month or so, I have seen more people talk about it, but it needs to be very popular. It needs to be top of the charts. I need to see people out here obsessing over it like so many other books that they're obsessing about that I don't think are as good, frankly. It was A Deal with the Devil by Elizabeth O'Rourke. This book was so good. My friend Morgan read this at the end of last year, and she literally not even like a third of the way through it was like, Nikki, you need to read this book. Like, you need to read this right now. You will die over it. You will obsess over it. It is an enemies to lovers workplace romance, which if you guys know me at all, that is, I would say, my favorite trope of all time. Like, it just hits for me every single time. I just think they're always good. I always enjoy them, but this one had it all. In my eyes, this is literally the perfect enemies to lovers rom-com kind of moment. Like the characters, the banter, the pacing of it, it was perfection. Like I wouldn't have changed anything about it. I was on the edge of my seat the entire time. I couldn't put it down. I loved their tension, their relationship, the conversation, like every bit of it interested me, and I ate it up. But basically it follows this girl named Tally and this man named Hayes. And Hayes is this super rich plastic surgeon that lives in LA that basically caters to all of the celebrities, all of the like rich housewives. He is very, very wealthy, very, very well off. And Tally is best friends with his personal assistant. But Tally's friend is going through some family issues and he just needs to take some time off. He has to step away for a while, and Hayes needs a personal assistant at all times. So he has been charged with finding a replacement, and he doesn't really want to do that because he wants to offer the job to Tally, because Tally currently works as a bartender. She has been dealing with some financial struggles because of a lot of things going on in her life, some family things that have really cost her a lot of money recently, and he knows that she could use the very good paycheck that comes from this job in the interim period while he is out for the couple of months. So he asks Tally if she would please take over his role, but obviously being his best friend, Tally knows the struggles that come with this job, how Hayes is a very grumpy man that is very demanding with a very, you know, strict schedule, start to finish every day. There's a lot to keep up with, and she just doesn't know if it's something that she wants to do, but it's really hard for her to say no to the money. So she obviously ends up taking the job, and now she's acting as Hayes' personal assistant. And oh my God, it was just your typical like not typical because it was so much better, just grumpy sunshine kind of moment. Hayes is just very focused on his work. He is definitely a playboy. He works all day. He has a different woman in his bed every single night, and then Tally is tasked with sending that woman on her way with a smile and sending flowers to her so that he'll never have to speak to her again. Oh my God, I just loved it. Like literally the pacing of the relationship between these two, of meeting and him just like disliking her right away, her not being able to stand him, but them having to spend a lot of time together because she is his personal assistant, him putting her through the ringer and having her do all these crazy tasks and organize all of these events and things for her and keep his schedule straight, and her being able to do all of it, and just slowly like them spending more time together and getting to know each other, and then obviously tensions rising and it leading to something more down the line. It was so good, like so freaking good, and that's all I have to say about it. This was very much a slow burn. Like you had to work for it. You had to accept the crumbs as they were given to you along the way, but I loved it. Like when everything came to a head, it was so worth it. And again, I just feel like the story of this, I just loved it. Like I wouldn't have changed a thing about it. And the cover is so freaking cute. There's a whole series involved with this. Like there's 4 other, or I think 3 other books kind of in the same world. So I'm definitely going to be continuing it, but this one straight up 5 stars, like obsessed. Okay, and then lastly, the book that I have been reading. I'm about 70% through it, and when I say 70% through it, I mean 70% through the 1,000+ pages that make up this book. I have been reading Manacled by Sin Yu, which if you are not aware of this, this is actually a Harry Potter fan fiction, and I want you to slow down. If you've already checked out, if you're already like, Nikki, what? Like, what are you talking about? Listen, it's a fan fiction. It's on AO3. I downloaded it to my Kindle. It's been something that I've been aware of for a long time now, like well over a year. This has been on my radar. I've been wanting to read it, but I have just been frankly scared because it's a Hermione fanfiction. And if you don't know that lingo, Draco Malfoy, Hermione Granger, Hermione. It's a Hermione fanfiction, and I have heard so much about it for so long, and I knew I was going to read it. I knew I needed to read it, but I've been afraid because anyone that I have seen that has read it, like, it has destroyed them. It has become their entire personality. Like, they have lost their mind over it, and I'm just like, okay, I need to read that, but the committing to the like 1,100, 1,200 pages that it is, I need a moment. But I found myself in like a weird place. I've just been really busy with work, and the books have just been hard to read, and I don't know, I felt kind of slumpy and strange. So I was like, now is the time. At the start of March, I was like, I'm gonna start to read this on my Kindle, and I'm just gonna see what happens. And oh my God, I'm gonna make an entire video dedicated to it, like 1000%. Once I finish it, I will make a whole video. So I'm not gonna talk about it too much now, but it's one of the greatest books I have ever read in my life. Like, I am not even being dramatic. It is incredible, and it makes me sick to my stomach that the author of this book is giving this to the world for free. Like, I think it's a she. Her name is Sin Yu is their name. I assume it's a she, but I don't know. They are one of the greatest writers I have ever read, and obviously cannot profit from this book because it is a fan fiction, and it's using characters and ideas that are copyrighted and from J.K. Rowling. But I'm just so thankful that they gave it to us because it's amazing. Again, I'm not going to go too far into it, but basically in this story, Harry Potter is dead. The Death Eaters, Voldemort, they won the Great War, and now they are starting their reign. They're starting to take over. And I haven't ever watched The Handmaid's Tale, the show, but this book is very much kind of based on that and takes inspiration from that in this story. So Voldemort's first sort of like initiative is that he wants to work on repopulating the earth and essentially creating more wizards and slowly getting the muggles out of here. So Draco, being his right-hand man, his biggest confidant, is basically charged with taking care of Hermione. Like Hermione has been assigned to him. She has been sort of enslaved. She has been left alive after all of this time. Basically every friend that she knows is dead, but they have kept her as a prisoner because she's valuable and they know she's valuable. And also she has some sort of block on her mind. There's something that she's hiding. She doesn't have any memory of it. She doesn't know what it is. She's keeping it hidden, obviously, but she has no memory of keeping it hidden. So Draco has been tasked to basically dig inside her mind, figure out what she could be hiding, break her basically, and also very much like The Handmaid's Tale, she's been assigned to pretty much be his handmaid and be the person that he is supposed to use to repopulate the earth. It's very dark. It's straight up very dark, very twisted, soul-wrenching, heart-wrenching, painful. I will say when it starts out, it's not what you think it's gonna be, and then you just over and over, you're like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, as things get revealed, it just goes on and on. But my entire heart and soul is like invested in this book right now, and I think I'm gonna cry when it ends. Like, I don't know, I've already cried but like when it ends and I don't have it to read on my Kindle, I'm not gonna know what to do with myself. But if you are a Harry Potter fan in any form or fashion, especially if you are into Draco, if you're a Slytherin girly like me and you like all of that, or even if you're not, you will adore this story. Like, it feels like a true continuation of Harry Potter. It's like a more mature, darker version of what would have happened if the story continued and if it didn't go the way that it went. So I love it. I'll definitely be making a whole video on it, like I said. But yeah, guys, those are all of the books that I read in the month of March. The month of April is going to be bananas. My second novel comes out the last day of April, April 30th. Something rad. I'm so excited for it. It's gonna be a lot for me to wrap it up. These next few weeks are gonna be crazy, just getting it published, getting everything ready, getting it promoted and out there. But I am so excited for you guys to read it. I'm so excited to give it to you. I'm so proud of it. It's my baby. It's my enemies to lovers fake dating story set in the 80s. Yeah, it's just gonna be a crazy month. But as always, excited to share it with you guys, excited to see what's to come for the rest of this year. But yeah, if you guys read any of these books, I would love to hear all your thoughts down below. If you read any other books that you absolutely loved, if you feel like I should read, put them in the comments. I'll add them to my TBR. But yeah, guys, that is it for me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you very soon. Bye.